Hi, I'm Beth Argent and I'm joined by Goal's chief correspondent Peter Staunton and Liverpool correspondent Neil Jones. Thanks for joining me, guys. We're going to be talking about the big game this weekend. It's Tottenham versus Liverpool at Wembley Stadium. So let's get to it. I guess the big talking point is obviously Liverpool's 100% record. Can Tottenham beat them?
Yeah, they could. Because,
Will they is the question.
Yeah, well, they did last season. Liverpool biggest defeat, or one of the biggest defeats of last season, came at Wembley. It was sort of a line in the sand for Liverpool a little bit. You know, it was a time when they had a lot of criticism, certainly defensively. They were beaten 4-1. Players were taken off before half time. Dejan Lovren humiliated, if you like, in front of the crowd. And after that, Liverpool really sort of changed a little bit of the way they played. And I think they'll have a lot to prove this weekend. They'll want to show that was not them last season. And I think it's not ideal coming off the back of an international break when you tend to get those sort of games that are a little bit stilted. But I think it's got the makings of a real cracker, this one, because Spurs have had come off the back of a bad result last time out, and I think they'll have a point to prove. But Liverpool, it's not since 1990 that they've won 5 out of 5. So yeah, I think it'll be a lunchtime cracker.
Yeah, well, you know, Spurs, they cause Liverpool, among the top teams anyway, they cause Liverpool more trouble in the league than any of the
4 points last season.
Yeah, 4 points last season. I think, you know, the Spurs have that fearlessness when they do play against Liverpool, because they know that their system is effective and that their players, you know, Harry Kane, for example, has 4 goals in his last 5 games against Liverpool.
Well, he scored 4 in his last 2 last season. Yeah, he scored 4. I think he scored in 4 of his last 5 games. Yeah.
So they have been able to step up when it matters in those games against Liverpool. And Liverpool's counter-attacking threat is such that some of the other big teams that kind of play conservatively in the bigger games, even Man City, I think, last season, they were more afraid of what Liverpool could do rather than confident in what they could bring. But it was the opposite for Spurs, and they took advantage of some mistakes, you would say, in the away game at Wembley last season. And you know, they really showed some resilience in that game at Anfield as well to grab the draw at the death. So I don't think Klopp, for example, will be looking at this game as another 3 points and, you know, a 5th win in the row in a bag. They could probably handpick a nicer opponent coming off an international break, as you say.
Including this weekend, Liverpool have got a really packed schedule come up and a lot of tough fixtures. What are you kind of expecting for them going forward?
Yeah, well, who knows? I mean, it's 7 in 24 days. They've got Tottenham, PSG, Southampton, Chelsea twice, Manchester City and Napoli before the next international break. I mean, you know, Southampton are probably the only one that you'd sit amongst that and say, well,
it has to be 3 points.
It has to be 3 points.
Yeah.
The rest could go either way. I mean, if Liverpool were to win 5 and then 7, you'd say what a fantastic run they've had. If they were to win 3, you'd say, and draw a couple, you'd say so. But they could easily lose an awful lot of those games, and that's the big test. You know, a start's only a start, and I think it went a little bit lost amongst all the euphoria, if you like, of the good start. It was sort of necessity as well. It was almost like, right, at least they've got some points on the board, because if they'd have struggled in the first 4 games, say they'd won 2 and lost 2, then you'd have been thinking, wow, okay, now the season could be in a bit of bother by the time we go to October.
You know, you talk about crunch points of the season, you're usually looking at sort of February, March and April when semi-finals and all that start to roll around, but Liverpool have been real hard done by, I think, in the Champions League draw, and they could probably have done without drawing, you know, such a good team as PSG, and again such a good team as Napoli as well, and then of course they end up with Chelsea in the EFL Cup too. And you know, I mean, if any of the top clubs were going to sacrifice any one trophy in any season, they'd probably say, look, we could afford to miss out the EFL Cup, but even so, if you're going to get beaten in those games quite heavily, you know, it doesn't do anybody's confidence any favours. And I think, you know, you mentioned the fact that they've made improvements in the goalkeeping department, in the central midfield. They're going to need their squad for those few games, because not only are they playing a high intensity, not only are they playing lots of games in a short space of time, but they're playing against real high quality opposition. Yeah,
absolutely. And you look at sort of Liverpool traditionally, if you like, they've relished those big Anfield games and bring on PSG and bring on Manchester City and that kind of stuff. But eventually it does take its toll, and I think it's easier to do that when it's 1 or 2 games over a period of time. When it's right, there you go, you've lost. Say they lose at Tottenham on Saturday, then they've got PSG all of a sudden. Then it's suddenly the pressure's on PSG. Obviously, the other way around is if they can get a good result at Wembley, then it takes something into the game. But I think it's it's just a massive period. I think a lot of Liverpool fans are looking forward to it. I do, because I think that's the mentality of this team and the way that the Jurgen Klopp's got them playing. But I also think that there's scope for it. It can go either way, and I think Liverpool are a little bit still. My feeling of them is that it'll be boom or bust. I don't see too much middle ground in between, and you know, you can. I could well imagine he wins 6 of them and lose to Southampton at home 2-0, something like that. But
the thing is, because it's coming so early in the season, it's not exactly make or break, but this run of games that I see Liverpool going on, I think it'll tell us an awful lot about where they will be
for the rest of the season.
Come the end of the season.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Just switching over to Tottenham now, if they have a good chance of getting a win or a draw, they really need Harry Kane to be on top form, don't they? Harry
Kane obviously hasn't had the benefit of that rest, and I think if any Spurs fans were going to be honest with themselves, they would say, although he's got a couple of goals in August, which is a monkey off his back, I don't think he's played particularly well so far this season. I think you talk to any Spurs fans, they'll tell you he hasn't played particularly well since maybe March or April last year. And it's the very fact he's able to get himself into those positions and nick a goal every now and again that just kind of keeps the critics from the door. He does have a happy habit of popping up with goals even when he's not playing particularly well. But you know, it doesn't take a genius to look at his form over the past 12 months and see that there's definitely been a drop off. He still gets himself into the positions and he's still able to score goals, but I just don't see the same kind of energy or pace or intensity in his game that we saw in the period of form that made him such a superstar for Spurs and for England. So however they're going to recover that, I don't know, because he looks like a player that needs a break to me. He didn't get that in the summer, obviously, because he was at the World Cup. You know, he didn't have a great pre-season because he was laid back. And obviously he's played twice for England. I know he just played on Tuesday night as a substitute, but you know, maybe he could have done with a week off there too.
Switching back to Liverpool, their front three, Salah, Mane and Firmino, how are they performing this season, Neil?
Probably not at the best. I mean, set such high standards last season, didn't they, with, you know, however many goals, 91 goals between them last season, absolutely incredible tally. You know, some clubs don't score that in 2 seasons, you know, and you think of Salah, 44 last season. He's got 2 already, and he's certainly settled back into that role of being the, I don't want to say the Messi, but the poacher sort of. He doesn't seem to get involved an awful lot in the build-up play. He seems to be in the team for that purpose to play in the final third. Mane's been the one who's looked something like his best. He's been he's obviously joint top scorer in the league with I think it's with Mitrovic from Fulham, who's obviously in great form. He's, for me, I saw him in pre-season. I was over in America and on the tour, and he looked like he really had the bit between his teeth, and he really looked like he was ready to make a big impact. And I spoke to a few people out there, and they said, "Oh, what Salah did last season, don't be surprised if Mane does something similar this season, and maybe even outshines Salah." Firmino, Peter just talked a bit about Harry Kane having a tough pre-season, but Firmino had a similar one. He came back quite late. I think he only had 1 pre-season or 1 or 2 pre-season games before the season started. So he's essentially still in that sort of recovery period from the World Cup, and you can see that his play isn't quite the same, but such good players that, you know, the tap can easily be turned on at any point. And I think a lot of Liverpool fans are banking on those 3 to really get going now in the next couple of weeks.
Well, they have to bank on those 3, because when you look at the way Liverpool attack, you know, there isn't necessarily a plan B there. It's not like he withdraws one of those and changes the shape up front. What they do is they play with those front 3, and if it works, it works, and if it doesn't, then he'll still persist with it. So they need to stay in form and they need to stay fit all season. And like you were saying, they haven't really, you know, borne much fruit against Spurs or in the results aspect of it all in the, you know, over the course of the last 12 months. So, you know, I think it'd be a big test for that front 3 at the weekend.
Yeah, Salah scored all Liverpool's goals last season at Spurs. He scored the 1 at Wembley and then got the 2 at Anfield. So he's someone who's delivered, but I think generally they're looking for more from him in terms of, he missed a good chance at Leicester in the last game, a uncharacteristic sort of miss, and I think there was a sort of a moment where the whole ground sort of went, oh, he didn't score, like he expecting it. But I don't think he'll be long out of the limelight, Salah. I think he's still at that level where it won't be long before he's back sort of grabbing the headlines. What
about Naby Keita? He's impressing the fans already, isn't he?
Yeah, he is. Didn't start the last game, which was a bit of a surprise, and I think a bit of a disappointment to Liverpool fans, because what they've seen from him is what they were told they were getting from him, where he's a bit of everything. He's got a bit of silk and finesse. He's got real energy and dynamism. He can pass the ball. He can get into scoring positions as well, and he can win the ball back. And it's been there aren't many midfielders around who have that skill set.
He's an all-rounder.
Yeah, really. You think of specialists like someone like Kante who does half of that job. Keita maybe doesn't do all of it as well as Kante, but does more. And I think there's a lot more to come from him. He's still adapting. I think Jurgen Klopp's very big on making sure that players don't get sort of just thrown straight in and expected to swim. I mean, Salah's probably an exception to that rule, but you think of Oxlade-Chamberlain, Andy Robertson last season, Fabinho. Look at Fabinho this season. How barely had a shirt on this season so far. So I think he will give him time, but one thing I'm absolutely certain is that Naby Keita will be starting at Wembley on Saturday, 100%.
On the flip side, what about Lucas Moura at Tottenham? He had a great performance against Manchester United the other week. How did Liverpool stop him?
I think he's been, for me, he's been the best Premier League player so far this season. That's been evidenced in the fact that he won Player of the Month, for the opening month of the season. And it'd be no consolation to Spurs fans because he signed no players in the summer. But he actually has been like a new signing. He really has. I know they signed him in January, and always it takes players coming from different leagues, it takes them a little bit of time just to get up to speed with the physicality, maybe the speed within the Premier League. And certainly in his early days of his Spurs career, I think there was a few Spurs fans scratching their heads going, what exactly have we signed here? But this guy's got huge pedigree. 40-odd Brazil caps, 4 years or so at PSG, and unlucky, I think, to lose his place in the PSG team in the end. And always been a really productive player. And Man United linked with him a few years ago as well, and he decided to go to PSG instead. So you're looking at, an established Brazil international coming in the peak of his career. There's no reason why he shouldn't be able to succeed in the Premier League. And he's working under Pochettino this season, working really, really well, and giving something to Spurs that they didn't have last season. Because you look at that front three, when they had, say, Kane, Eriksen and Ali, what you're missing there is somebody who can get on the outside and dribble, or even, plays that sort of false winger, pick the ball up centrally and then go either way past the centre-backs. You saw the goal he scored off Chris Smalling at Old Trafford, for example, it illustrates that point perfectly. And I think a lot of teams are going to have real trouble in dealing with Lucas Moura. And
playing somewhere different as well. He was sort of a right winger, wasn't he?
Yeah.
That's where everyone expected him to play as right winger. Now he's playing almost as a second striker, isn't he? Playing off, playing in behind.
In a partnership with Harry Kane.
And I always thought that with Spurs was they were so set up for Kane, weren't they? Or they have traditionally been so set up for Kane. So it's been Trippier or Ben Davies or Danny Rose or whoever plays on the flanks getting crosses in. Now they've got an extra one where they can play up to Kane and then play beyond him, behind the line. And we know Liverpool play a high line, and I think
that's it.
I think they'll be thinking twice. I mean, luckily they've got a couple of centre backs with pace, but I think they're going to need it if they're going to play a high line against Tottenham.
They know that if they're going to try and press Spurs in possession, and Spurs keep the ball really, really well among their three centre backs and defensive midfielder, they're so well equipped to hold on to the ball, great technical skills. And if Liverpool then press up on that, and they have to play one ball in behind to go 1-1 with Alisson, and we've got Lucas doing that. He's much quicker than Ali. He's much quicker than Kane. Liverpool are going to have to pay particular attention to this player on Saturday.
What about Joe Gomez? How's he doing filling in for Liverpool's defence?
Yeah, he's been really good. Probably the standout for Liverpool so far this season. In the first 4 games, he's one of those players that for many, it feels like for many years, he's only been at Liverpool 3 years. He's only 21, but it feels like it's been sort of touted. He's going to be a centre back. He's going to be a centre back. He's going to be a centre back. And for whatever reason, injuries, for the fact that they've been needed at right back, and they've had obviously people like Lovren in good form and Van Dijk sign, he hasn't really had the chance. This is the first time he's had a proper chance in the Premier League at centre back, and I think he looks very assured. He was outstanding last time out against Leicester. He was outstanding against Crystal Palace prior to that. He's got a lot of attributes to be a very, very good centre back, and I know the England staff rate him very highly. And he started on Tuesday night he started on Saturday, didn't he, against Spain rather. And they see him as part of that back three. I think long term they see Joe Gomez being part of that.
Well, he started as in that back three when Gareth Southgate switched to it, didn't he? And then obviously he got injured. And then he got injured, and England had to put Kyle Walker.
I mean, he would have gone to the World Cup. Bar the fact he rolled his ankle playing against the Netherlands in, I think it was March. And then he was asked, because Liverpool were struggling for players really, he was asked to risk himself.
It was against Stoke. I was at that game
in April, and he he basically he couldn't do it after that, and he had to have surgery on it, so he missed on the Champions League final and the World Cup. So he's obviously got a lot to prove this season, but so far so good. And he and Van Dijk look a good blend. They're both athletic, both quick. Van Dijk's more dominant in the air, gets up and wins his headers, but Gomez has got real recovery pace, and like we were saying there with Spurs, I mean, I don't know if Son will play or
well, he's done a lot of travelling, hasn't he, the last little while playing the Asian Cup.
But if they're getting anyone breaking lines, Joe Gomez is key, and we saw it against Wilf Zaha at Crystal Palace, who made a great recovery challenge there. So he brings something that Liverpool could do with, I think, if they're going to play high up the pitch.
Finally, guys, predictions. What do you think the score will be?
I think both teams will score. I think it'll be I think it could be a 2-2, maybe something like that. I think maybe let's play to the gallery. Let's say Liverpool to win 2-1.
Okay.
Look, I think Spurs took their eye off the ball against Watford. There's no way they should have lost that game. I think they're a better team than that, and I think their opening fixtures where they're winning games and beating Man United at Old Trafford, that's more of an illustration of the type of Spurs team that we're going to see this season. I think that Pochettino's going to have them really well drilled for Saturday to make sure that they recover from that defeat against Watford with a win against Liverpool. So I'm going to say convincing win for Spurs. I'm going to say 3-1.
Okay, well, we'll have to wait and see. Thanks, Pete and Neil. Make sure you follow these guys on social media. All the links are in the description below. And make sure you subscribe to Goal for all the latest football and analysis.